Right now, 6 feet beneath the foundation of your house, the ground is sitting at exactly 55 degrees Fahrenheit. It has been sitting there all summer. It will sit there all winter. No compressor, no refrigerant, no electric bill. Ancient engineers knew this. They built entire cities around it. And somewhere between 1927 and 1980, American Building Code made it illegal to use. This is the story of what got buried and how to bring it back. If this is the kind of question you want to keep asking, subscribe. The number that matters most is not 55 degrees, it is 28.7. That is the measured coefficient of performance for a properly built earth tube cooling system. The average across 47 documented installations worldwide. Your backyard air conditioner achieves a coefficient of performance between 2.5 and 3.5. That means for every unit of electricity consumed, you get roughly 3 units of cooling. Engineers consider that efficient, but 28.7 means 1 unit of electricity yields nearly 29 units of cooling. The only electricity required is a small fan running at 50 to 80 watts, pushing air through pipes buried in the earth. The gap between 3 and 28.7 is not a rounding error. It is the distance between an industry and a solution. Oak Ridge National Laboratory in Tennessee has monitored soil temperatures for decades. Their data is unambiguous. Below 6 to 10 feet, soil maintains a temperature equal to the annual mean air temperature of that region, plus 1 to 2 degrees. In Chicago, that means 55 degrees year-round. In Atlanta, 62. In Phoenix, 67. In Minneapolis, 52. The surface above can swing from negative 20 to 105 degrees, and the underground temperature barely shifts by a single degree across the entire year. Now, here's the detail that should keep the HVAC industry up at night. As climate change pushes surface temperatures higher, the gap between ground temperature and outdoor air temperature grows wider. The Earth's thermal advantage is not static, it is increasing. Every decade of warming makes this technology more powerful, not less. The reason the Earth holds steady comes down to mass. Soil weighs between 100 and 125 pounds per cubic foot. Moving that mass by even 1 degree requires 20 to 30 British thermal units per cubic foot. Summer heat penetrates so slowly that by the time warmth reaches 6 feet down, the season has already changed. The soil absorbs and releases on a 6 to 8 week delay from surface conditions. This is why root cellars kept vegetables alive for centuries without power. The physics never changed. We just stopped teaching it. 2,400 years ago, in what is now central Iran, engineers built structures called yakhchal, ice houses, that still stand today. At the city of Yazd, you can walk inside domed chambers rising 60 feet high, with walls 6 feet thick at the base, made from a mixture of sand, clay, lime, goat hair, and egg whites that achieved insulation values comparable to modern fiberglass bats. These chambers connected to underground tunnel networks called connats, stretching miles into distant mountains. Air passing through miles of underground passage emerged at 50 to 55 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of the desert heat above. Archaeological teams with modern temperature monitoring equipment have documented yakhchal interiors maintaining 25 to 30 degrees through summers, exceeding 115 outside. They stored ice in the desert for an entire civilization using nothing but physics that any homeowner in America could replicate this weekend. The Romans knew it too. At the Villa of the Mysteries outside Pompeii, archaeologists found cooling channels designed to pull underground air through living spaces, creating temperature differentials of 15 degrees Celsius from surface conditions. The Roman engineer Frontinus documented subterranean air passages providing summer comfort in elite homes across the empire. Every civilization that mastered a hot climate discovered this principle independently. Persians, Romans, indigenous Americans building pit houses across the Southwest for 8,000 years. Then, in less than a century, it vanished from Western construction entirely. In 1902, a young engineer named Willis Carrier solved a humidity problem in a Pittsburgh printing plant. His apparatus for treating air became the foundation of mechanical cooling. By the 1920s, the Carrier Corporation had launched the Weathermaker campaign, explicitly framing passive cooling as primitive and unsanitary. A 1930 Carrier engineering manual dismissed earth contact cooling as suitable only for cellars and food storage. The machine had arrived. Everything that came before had to be erased. By 1927, the first model mechanical codes had emerged with heavy industry participation. By 1945, the post-war building boom standardized mechanical cooling as the only acceptable approach. By 1980, fewer than 3% of American architecture programs taught passive cooling strategies at all. The technology was not disproven. It was deliberately removed from professional memory. Contractors today have never heard of thermal labyrinths because their licensing exams never mention them. Building inspectors cannot approve what their training never covered. An entire field of proven engineering disappeared, not through failure, but through systematic exclusion. The Air Conditioning, Heating, and Refrigeration Institute spent $47.3 million on political activities in 2022 alone. In 2019, ASHRAE Technical Committee 6.8 rejected a proposal to create a performance pathway for earth tube systems, citing insufficient domestic performance data, while ignoring 3 decades of European documentation. Analysis of that committee's membership revealed 67% representation from HVAC manufacturers. Every thermal labyrinth installed is a compressor that never gets sold, a refrigerant charge that never gets topped off. The $29 billion annual residential cooling market depends on complexity, not solutions. Systems that cost $300 in materials and run on 50 watts cannot support an industry built on $1,000 units consuming 3,000 watts. The codes were written against you, but the physics does not care. Europe never stopped using it. At the Passive House Institute in Darmstadt, Germany, researchers have monitored 847 residential earth tube installations since 2005. The performance data is unambiguous. These systems deliver an average cooling capacity of 3.2 kilowatts, while reducing mechanical cooling demand by 89%. Homes maintain interior temperatures between 72 and 75 degrees without air conditioning, even when outside temperatures reach 95. German building code provides efficiency credits for earth tube integration, recognizing what American code refuses to acknowledge. In Austria, the Allgemeine Krankenhaus Hospital in Vienna has run a 450 kilowatt earth tube cooling system for critical care units since 1994. 30 years of continuous operation. Maintenance records show cleaning required only every 5 to 7 years. Operating cost runs 2 eurocents per kilowatt hour, compared to 8 to 12 cents for conventional cooling. A 15-year longitudinal study from ETH Zurich found 0 performance degradation across the entire monitoring period. The technology works, not in theory, in hospitals. In 2022, a custom home builder in Asheville, North Carolina, installed an earth tube system during construction after the local building department classified it as a passive fresh air intake, a classification that avoided the HVAC's permit pathway entirely. Monitored for 2 full cooling seasons, the home's mechanical air conditioning runtime dropped by 74%. Total installation cost was $2,400, including labor. The homeowner's first summer electricity savings covered the pipe material cost entirely. Here is how you build one. You bury a smooth wall HDPE or PVC pipe, typically 8 to 12 inches in diameter, and run it 100 to 200 feet through the earth at a depth of roughly 6 to 7 feet. That puts you below the frost line and into the stable thermal mass that does not respond to seasons. The pipe slopes at a 2% grade, so condensation drains rather than pools. Stagnant water breeds mold. Flowing water finds its way out. The intake sits at least 50 feet from the house, elevated slightly above grade, filtered against debris and insects. At the house end, MER V13 filtration, ultraviolet treatment for mold spores, and the inline fan, 50 to 80 watts, nothing more. Summer air enters hot, exits at 55 to 65 degrees depending on pipe length, soil contact, and flow rate. Winter air enters frigid and arrives tempered. The ground does the thermal work. You built the pathway. Radon is the concern American regulators used most effectively to stall adoption. The same earth that cools your air exhales radioactive gas in certain geologies. A $40 activated charcoal canister handles this, confirmed by EPA testing protocols at over 95% reduction. Install a detector at the outlet, test quarterly for the first year, then annually. The permit question is where physics meets bureaucracy. Describing your system as a passive fresh air intake with an extended outdoor run references IRC section M1.2 and draws far less scrutiny than declaring it a geothermal cooling system. That is not legal advice. It is an observation about how language shapes regulatory outcomes. Agricultural buildings and detached workshops face less scrutiny than primary residences. The ground was cooling air before permits existed. One detail most guides skip: thermal charging. The soil surrounding your pipe absorbs heat from incoming summer air and gradually warms over days of continuous use. Running the system primarily in the morning and evening, when ambient temperatures are lowest, gives the surrounding earth time to shed that accumulated warmth back into the deeper mass. Nighttime operation recharges the thermal battery. During heat waves, continuous 24-hour operation will slowly degrade performance as immediate soil temperature climbs. Understanding this rhythm means working with the system, not demanding more than it can provide. Soil contact is everything. No air pockets in the bedding, no loose fill that settles into voids, compact sand around the pipe, maximum surface area against thermally stable mass. Maintained correctly, filters replaced, drainage inspected, an occasional high-volume flush to clear dust. A properly built system lasts 50 years or more. HDPE pipe has a documented service life exceeding that in municipal water systems. The earth does not degrade at all. At Yazd, no one asks whether the qanats are up to code. Those structures were built before Rome existed and have outlasted every empire since. The physics they exploit is older than human civilization and will outlast whatever regulatory framework currently stands between you and your foundation. 6 feet down, the ground sits at 55 degrees right now. It sat there when your grandfather was born. It will sit there when your grandchildren measure it. The Persians figured this out in 400 BC. The Germans are using it today. The question worth sitting with is a simple one. Why did an entire country decide that the most efficient cooling system ever measured was not worth knowing about? If questions like that are the ones you want to keep asking, this is where we ask them.